Hello, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Planning the Modern Channel Media Mix. What's now? What's next? Presented by Patient Point and Fierce Pharma. I'm Rebecca Kushmiter. I'll be hosting your webinar today. Before we get started with the presentation, here are just a few housekeeping notes. Additional resources for the presentation are available in the handouts window. If you close on one of the windows on your screen and you need to reopen it, just click on its name in the top navigation bar. It should pop right back up. This webinar is being recorded. It'll be available on demand within 24 hours. To learn more about our speakers, you can head on over to the speaker bio window and see more about them. And finally, we will take questions today if we have time. You can enter them anytime into the submit questions window on your screen. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speakers today. We're going to be joined by Linda Rushaw, Chief Commercial Officer at Patient Point, Angelica Aguirre, Director of Integrated Experience Planning at Novartis, and Melissa Gordon-Ring, the Global President of Health at IPG Media Brands. With that, I will hand it off to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Rebecca. I'm thrilled to be here today and even more excited to be joined by my dear friends and industry experts, Angelica and Melissa. Thank you so much for giving us your time to join this discussion today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Today, we're going to tee up 3 hot questions for marketers. And I think a lot of this is on the top of every pharma marketer's mind, particularly in our current environment and the lack of clarity on where we're going with TV. And the question is TV still relevant to pharma marketers? Mm-hmm. What is social media's role in targeting? And how do these trends impact point of care and your brands? In order to address these questions, Patient Point partnered with the expert in Ad Age, and we worked with Ad Age to conduct a cross-industry analysis of the top marketing channels. In order to do so, this is a fairly robust study. Ad Age surveyed over 459 respondents in marketing or advertising across 18 different industries, not just pharmaceuticals, but multiples, as you can see noted there below. They evaluated marketing channels for sales, for trust, for the impact, and for audience reach, key components as any part of a media or marketing mix. And they gauged TV's current relevance and spend, along with marketers' interest, not just in TV, but in other emerging and more social channels. So let's dig into what we learned. The first, and maybe not a surprising stat to some, was that TV spend is declining. TV in all its forms ranked high for driving awareness, and yet the spend is declining. We saw that 38% of marketers ranked linear TV as the top channel for brand awareness, yet a drop in investment from 56 to 44% in 2023 to 2024. So I'd love for maybe starting with Angelica, how you're seeing that play out across Novartis brands.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. So TV definitely is still relevant for us here at Novartis, but we're being very, very decisive about when we use TV. But first, I want to say that TV is definitely a place that we are seeing a lot of evolution. So TV includes linear, streaming, and addressable formats. It's a powerful awareness driver, especially when it comes to emotional storytelling and reaching that broad patient population. It still builds trust at scale, but now we can pair it with precision targeting to reach the right patients and caregivers more efficiently. And again, we're reserving TV for those big moments that matter, where we want to get out in front and reach a broader audience.
Great, thank you for that. And I have to say, some of your TV spots, certainly in the oncology division, tug at my heart. So they're incredibly well done. I can get the use of that for emotion. Melissa, how about you? As global president at IPG, you oversee a lot of brands and companies, including Novartis. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing as trends in the TV spend.
Lots of different trends, and I'm grateful I actually worked with Novartis in a past life, so working with different clients now, but it's wonderful to know that some of the foundational work that the teams have been doing is really continuing to drive everything forward. But more importantly, I think to Angelica's point, there is a space and a place for video, and that's really the language that we use across the board with our clients. Our ability to utilize it as a driver, and for key messaging, ideally with single propositions so that it's simple, especially within this space, makes it really helpful for our clients and our patients to really understand the messaging. And from a linear standpoint, it's so interesting how this industry is still classifying things as linear when we on the agency and on the client side understand that video really is kind of ubiquitous in so many different spaces and places. And if you're only buying just straight linear, then you're definitely behind the eight ball and behind your competitors.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember in our preparation when we first started reviewing these stats to prepare for the webinar, you all very wisely asked the question, what kind of TV are we talking about, before I can even comment on that. So I think, to your point, Melissa, great one. How we classify and how we speak about TV is really changing and evolving. But let's face it, pharma is always going to love those beautifully executed, well done TV spots. It's in what way do you deploy those best?
Absolutely.
So let's go to our next channel, which is social. Having just been at our upfront, we had Dr. Mike. So we were definitely tapping into the social channels. I always think if you're under 18, you spend probably 23 out of 24 hours a day on social media. So let's look at how that's playing out across other industries, and then how pharma ranks compared to that. So interestingly, social media channels are seen as dominant drivers of brand affinity, a way that you can relate to the brand. And you can see the stats across Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and influencers, which just did not have a mass to rate across industry. Let's look at how pharma compares when we pull that out compared to other industries. Slightly higher for Facebook, slightly lower for Instagram. Didn't show up at all at YouTube, but influencers quite high. Melissa, I'll start with you. What's your reaction to that, and what do you think's driving that?
I think that people, and I love the word trust because I say this all the time, it's built in increments and taken away in one fell swoop. But the ability
Love
for
that.
influencers to drive trust has been incredible in terms of this channel as a growing platform. People connect with people that they care about or people that they're interested in. And we use this across the board for both patients and physicians. And we can see the power in that. Sometimes if they see a little bit of themselves or something that they hope to be in the influencer world, it's definitely something that people can feel connected to. Social is a critical part of what it is that we do, and the rise of social in the past 5-10 years has been absolutely incredible in our ability to utilize messaging in a way that can drive even more affinity when it comes to how a patient or a physician will engage with our brand or even take action from that. So it's a great place to be a conversation starter, to allow people to ask questions or prompt a different type of engagement.
Great, thank you for that. Angelica, you've certainly had experience using social influencers. Can you elaborate and share some examples and thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say that most pharma companies used to say that social was nice to have. That's no longer the case. Social is a must have.
100%.
And I would say hopefully in the future, we see even different channels on your slide, such as like I see Facebook, I see the Instagram, those are our meta channels, but there are so many other platforms out there that fall into the social category. Like Reddit is up and coming very, very
Huge.
quickly in where we want to reach our customers. But as I was saying, social is no longer a nice to have. The social platform is definitely evolving. It's where interest meets intent. It lets us target by behavior and mindset, and not just age or a demo audience, but we can truly engage those patients, those caregivers, even those physicians earlier in the journey to help them understand when they're searching, when they're having that moment of confusion and they're looking for solutions and they're sharing and they're talking with their friends, that we can be there as well and be a part of that conversation. And I think the really smart brands, what they're doing is they're finding the right moments to be in TV, but then they're also, while that TV ad is happening at a big tentpole moment, they're ensuring they're showing up in social almost in tandem or shortly thereafter. When you can bring those two channels together, it's truly impactful.
It sounds like, right, the combination is, and that's what we're all talking about here today, is the cross intersection of how these channels work together. I'd be remiss
Right.
if I didn't bring up some of the topic that we got into in our previous discussion on this, which is also the importance of reliability, trust, in the right social and influencer channels, and how much fake news there is out there today. I mean, I love some of the examples that Dr. Mike shared with us. Is that of concern to pharma? How do you, and I'm putting you on the spot here because we didn't prep on that, but any
Mhm.
thoughts on that, on how you protect your brand trust and equity from the wrong social channels?
I
I
think
mean, I'm
we do a lot of due diligence internally. We have a media COE team that's really helping us vet the right partners and ensuring we're showing up in the right way. We have a privacy team. We have a regulatory team that's helping us show up in the right ways. And we're finding solutions and working with the right influencers, whether they're
Yep.
actors or digital opinion leader influencers. We're finding those right ways, but we have to really rely on our extended team to do it in a compliant manner and
Right.
ensure that we're building trust and following those safety guardrails.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
So,
and 100%. Oh, sorry, just
no,
to add
please
for a
go ahead.
second, it's those guardrails that are so
Mhm.
critical to have in place, and not just mid campaign, but beforehand, and
Right.
ensuring that everyone is involved, because it really does come back to measurement and that
Yeah.
ability to tie, at least in our world, a prescription to an exposure or an
Right.
action taken. You never want to be on the side of a situation where you've been, you've placed something, or you've seen something that feels wrong.
Yep.
So we
Mhm.
also have, incredible protocol in place, and it once again comes back to that trust, right? Trust with
Yes.
Right.
your partners, trust with
Yes.
your agency, trust with your clients, that you're all in service of doing the right thing, for the brands.
Great. So,
Absolutely.
so keeping on that theme of trust,
Yep.
the category and the channel that's near and dear to me, obviously, is point of care. So if we look at these social media channels, and again, these are the affinity rankings, looking orange for pharma. When you look at point of care, look at the jump there. And certainly not surprising to me, right? You're in the office and getting that information from your doctor. Melissa, maybe starting with you on this one. How do you relate? How do you respond to this? And how do we make sure that, point of care is seen as that superior channel for trust along with some of these other sexy new channels?
I think it's not surprising to me, having worked in this business and being so passionate about healthcare for my entire career. I've always been a champion of point of care, because it doesn't get any closer to the actual conversation or the room where it happens, because you have
Mhm.
to, have that conversation, with your physician to, to get a treatment, or make those decisions about how to feel better if possible, and learn those options.
Mhm.
The proximity of messaging there is so critical as we think about, not just where patients are within their journey, but within understanding, what it means for them to have the control to make decisions about their own health,
Right.
and giving physicians and patients tools to better understand what it is that they're going through in that moment, is a superpower.
Mhm. I love that. Angelica, how about you?
Yes, that is that moment that matters most when we are reaching that patient. If the contextual consistency of them being in that office to ask and talk about symptoms and hopefully get a treatment, just as Melissa was saying. But we also want to make sure that point of care, that we're treating it just like we're treating all of the other channels. We know
Mhm.
that it's becoming more personalized, and the behaviors that are driving that within point of care, they have to stay consistent with the strategy. We certainly don't want to put creative in point of care that's an afterthought. If we
Thank you.
personalize upstream, we must personalize at that point of care and ensure that that same message, clear and actionable drivers, are in there to help create that context and truly influence decisions at those moments that matter most.
Which is going to drive even greater trust, right? As opposed to just a generic
Absolutely.
message. I think it's a great point to add as to how to generate perhaps even higher trust.
Mm-hmm.
And you both mentioned something I kept thinking. I'm an ex Procter and Gamble person, and A.G. Lafley one of the most renowned and respected CEOs there always called it the moment of truth. And I think
Love
that
that.
really drives back to point of care. It's really the moment of truth where you find out exactly what's going on and is that treatment really right for you? And there was actually kudos to PHM at their health front. Actually, Survivor.net CEO made a comment, and it just has stuck with me. It's so resonant. There's a difference between saying, "Who do you trust?" versus "Who do you trust when you're sick?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot that we could build and talk about that stat all day, but I think there's a lot that speaks to why being with the doctor is going to be that moment of extreme trust.
Yeah.
So driving sales, kind of switching from trust, and you would think that there's a direct correlation. Let's see if there are. The top ranked channels as it relates to driving sales across the industry, you can see pretty consistent. Facebook, Instagram, search, and we see TikTok popping up. It's interesting you mentioned Reddit because I haven't, that one just slipped off of my mind too, but I know
Mm-hmm.
that that's really gaining traction. I go to Reddit. Um, for pharma, for driving sales, much lower stats. So it's interesting, and I'd love for you to opine and share your insights as to why you think these, the trust stats are so high, but yet they don't see these for using sales, and how do we bridge that gap? Angelica, you want to take this one first?
Sure. I'll see what I can think about with this one. This is a big question. We know search, we have to have it in our plans. It's a very important point where we can, again, reach those customers, whether they're the patients or the HCPs, when they're considering, they're in that awareness, consideration stage. And maybe search has brought them there because we have planted little nuggets, little seeds along the way through other marketing efforts. So I do feel that search does contribute to sales. It may not be the highest driver in sales, but it's certainly capturing their attention and bringing them in. And hopefully, as we're continuing to engage the customer through the marketing journal, that we're providing even more value added service to them as they're considering their current disease state, their treatment decisions. I do think search does have a trust place within the marketing funnel. And it also is a place where we can start to pull in those customers to start engaging and changing behaviors along the way.
Great. And Melissa, and I know we are going to dig even deeper into search here, but thoughts in general across these other social platforms, including search.
It's interesting to me because when you think of search, it doesn't live in a silo, right? When you're doing broader scale advertising and you are priming awareness across other channels, that's when search spikes as well.
Interesting.
So it is that, heads down, it's a lean forward. It doesn't get more lean forward when you're typing in something into a computer or your phone. So I think it continues to be a pivotal channel. We just have to figure out the best way to use our messaging and to support that kind of in this brave new world.
It's so interesting. And I mean, you're tying it all back to the whole genesis of the study, which is how do channels work together?
Yep.
They serve different purposes. And I love, the commentary that you were sharing, which is, search in and of itself may not be the best thing, but if you're doing search tied to other mediums, and then that's when the search spikes, all these
100%.
channels just work together. There's no standalone wonder drug in the world of media for pharma, right?
No silver bullet that we know.
It's a point of care. Had to say that. So great transition here, right? Is as we look at driving sales and having, demonstrable impact back to pharma brands, some interesting stats here, and I'll just speak to those and let you share both your personal experience or thoughts to that. And I think they tell a story, right? That over half of patients say that they're most likely to act on a doctor's office advertisement versus something seen on another channel. And it, again, going back to tying to the moment of trust, the moment of truth, we see a 15% increase in new scripts for every brand that's advertised. And I think as a result, we're seeing growth across the entire point of care channel in double digits, 22% of channel growth. And I go back, and certainly Melissa and you and I have worked together for longer than I'll care to mention. Angelica, I have the pleasure of having you as a new client and friend. But now point of care is becoming one of those traditional channels. Do you think we're finally getting to the point where it's being a must-have and a foundational part of marketing plans, Melissa? Or any thoughts on that, or how we make that
No,
happen?
of course. I very much believe in the power of this channel. I think that it's used in a number of different ways as our business continues to also get more competitive. We're
Yeah.
often playing offense and defense when it comes to
Mhm.
physicians' offices because of the power of the channel, and we want to make sure that it's our products that are the ones that are most needed or most identifiable patients are
Mhm.
seeing that message. So we use it in a number of different ways. When you're thinking about new product launches as well, it's absolutely critical to ensure that
Mhm.
that's part of your channel mix because you are driving awareness in that point of discussion. And I think that there's, continues to be power, and I'm excited to see where, the technology takes us in terms of
Hey,
the tactic itself.
great. We appreciate that. Angelica, your thoughts. And I know you're a point of care expert as well.
Yeah, I feel definitely point of care needs to be in just about every marketing plan, whether you're at that beginning stages of market shaping or you're a mature brand. But really give it a proper consideration as you're going through brand planning. It's that season where we're in brand planning, and inventory is a tough play in point of care. So if your competitor is there, it's hard to inch into those same offices. So definitely consider it, whether it's the traditional exam room, the lobby where they're waiting, or even the back office. And I also really love your point of care offering that you've recently launched, Linda, which is that precision offering where we can be very focused in reaching the patient pre-visit when they're in the portal, and then after their visit as well. It's a nice opportunity to have that addition to the point of care space.
Thank you. And you're both right, obviously. And the space is evolving, it's growing, it's becoming more personalized. And if we look back talking about all of these other channels, is there a message out there that the call to action is not ask your doctor about, or
Mm.
ask your doctor if X brand is right for you? So the thought of not pulling through all those other channels as we continue to talk about the need to make them work holistically seems
Mhm.
like such a huge miss. I don't know if you have any words of advice for any brand who has not worked in point of care or for some reason feels hesitant. What would you say to someone who might be a little gun shy?
Do a test and learn. Test and learns are great.
Yep,
Marketing is an art and a science. So
it is.
invest some dollars, set aside a certain percentage of your investment and try it and measure it. It's
Yep.
all measurable, and your partners will work with you to find the right space that's going to move your customers through that next journey that you're looking to implement. And let's be honest, Linda, HCPs are the original influencers, right?
That's right. That's right. Melissa, anything you'd build on what Angelica shared?
Yeah, no, I'd say just show them the numbers. To me,
Mhm.
I've always I laugh. Numbers don't lie.
Right. It's
Ideally, if you're
true.
using them the right way. I was a math nerd at one point in my life, and that's the truth in terms of if there's a way to figure something out with numbers, um, then it's there's confidence in there.
Yes.
So in
It's
you know
measurable to your
the due
point.
diligence
Mhm.
in terms of how important and the investments that companies have made in support of providing their message within this channel, and if you can say a 15% NRX brand lift, there's no brand person who's not going to want that.
Right.
So, and I know I've seen higher in certain
Oh, yeah.
situations too. So this is like on average, I'm imagining,
Yes,
but
it's
it
actually
also
it's pretty understated to your point, because a lot of the lift for some of them, the smaller the drug, the higher the lift, the bigger the
yeah.
drug, the smaller the lift, but the ROI is
Yeah.
still the
But I
same.
would take them through the methodology and
Mhm.
the different categories and the impact that it's had in the
Yes.
past. So you also wouldn't see a channel that is continuing to grow if it wasn't making an impact.
Yeah, Melissa and Linda, there is one more element we haven't really touched on yet. We know that in pharma, the sales force is that biggest contributor to a sales.
Hmm.
But
Yes.
when they're not in the doctor's office and they've gone on to see their next customer, point of care continues to carry that message that that sales rep delivered in a personal format. And now you've got the point of care message continuing that same message in a non-personal promotional effort. So I think the Salesforce teams love point of care as well
Oh
because
yeah.
it
Right.
keeps that message top of mind with that customer.
I am so glad you mentioned that. You're right, Angelica. And not only can point of care serve as a surrogate rep, but we all know in marketing, there's a lot of
Mhm.
conflict oftentimes between the sales organization and the marketing organization. What are you doing for me? And the sales team says,
Right.
put all your dollars into more salespeople. And the marketing team says, salespeople can't even get access to a doctor. I don't
Right.
put more dollars to sales. Point of care really does bring those two worlds together and supports
Absolutely.
the salesperson to be more effective when they can't be there. And by the way, there's no reason not to take that and be personalized as well, right? To support the individual rep at a rep level. I mean, everything in point of care can be personalized now. So I love that build. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So just continuing on, I think again on our thought process of the channels all work together. One of the biggest questions that I hear both from agencies and clients is, should it be point of care or should it be TV? And my answer is always, it should be both. And I know you all are advocates of that as well. It's a well-planned, well-balanced media plan. So what we decided to do is let's again, Melissa, I just learned, by the way, I was a math major as well. How did I not know that we were both math geeks? But we said we're going to conduct a study. And so we used a very carefully controlled study using independent data. I'm not going to go through all the methodology here, but happy to share that. If anybody has Q&A, just drop that in and I'm happy to have some follow-up with details on your particular brand or questions of interest. But we use data from Symphony Health, Media Radar, and the US Census. And what we did is take a look at the top 10 spending brands in linear TV across 35 markets. So a very large sample size, that's 40% of the population, and said, what happens when you add POC and TV together? And really trying to show that to marketers that 1 + 1 might equal 3. And so we saw when marketers, brand marketers, those top brands, 10 brands were spending with TV, on average, they saw about a 27% lift in their volume when they started running TV. When they added POC, that lift went from 27% up to 34%. Importantly, all 10 brands showed significant gain, and the average was 25% across all brands. Thoughts, anything you would add, or is this of course it happened, or any other thoughts you would have? Maybe Angelica, starting with you.
I'm not surprised. I think the more you layer on in your media mix, the better off you are. So
Yes.
props. And yes, I agree with what you just shared with the team.
Melissa, any thoughts on this one?
No, 100%. I think once again, we're living in an omni-channel world, right? We have to be
Yes.
able to approach things when through the lens of what is the full impact of the combination of what we're doing, and the incremental, you know, numbers is are powerful, and
Very
it
much
makes
so. And in
100%
terms of
sense.
doing more with less, we all know, I'm not going to say the specific number, but if you don't have a certain millions of dollars, it doesn't make sense to do broadcast TV, maybe the other forms of TV and targeted TV.
Yeah.
But you can get a lot more granular and efficient and targeted with your spend when you add point of care. So those results could even go up even further. But really excited. This study is late breaking. And again, if you're one of the top 10 brands and you're tuning into this webinar, would be happy to share the details and methodology with anyone. Again, just drop it into the Q&A and we'll be happy to respond. And I was actually hoping that we'd have time for Q&A, but I think we have used up our allocation. So I am going to just turn it back over to Rebecca, but also Angelica, Melissa. Thank you not just for today, but for being advocates for your clients, for your brands, and always supporting the overarching channel in our industry. No better spokespeople than the two of you. So thank you again. And thank you,
Thank
Fierce
you.
Pharma, for having
Thank
us.
you for having us. Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to our great speakers. I'm sorry we did run out of time, so we weren't able to take any questions today, but we see you submitted a lot of great questions in the platform. We will do our best to get back to you personally after the webinar. Just a reminder, this webinar has been recorded. It will be available to access on demand within 24 hours. And once again, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time.